Hi, this is Kim Pinkney, and welcome to my channel. Today, I wanted to draw another one of my favorite 80s cartoon, 80s, 90s cartoon characters, but I wanted to kind of look at the female versions, the black female versions, because there weren't very many. And these were the ones that really stood out to me. The women of color that stood out to me, and when I was a kid. And one of my favorite cartoons was Dungeons and Dragons back in the day. I loved the concept. I loved everything about it. It was just fun and colorful, and it was, I think, and for the time period, really well done. I'm disappointed that they never uh, had an end to the cartoon, and not a proper one. It was just like it was just taken off the air, and it's just like, man, that sucks. So anyway, Diana was the only black character on the show. Um, she was a gymnast, and so she, at least that's what as I was reading up on her, back when I was coming up with another idea to kind of do my own little fan art type of thing. It was going to be a concept that I was going to do in my 100 days of making comics. Um, instead of having good kids uh, go to this world, I was going to have some bad kids, and it was just like tied in with a whole bunch of other ideas, um, and and I didn't finish my 100 days of making comics because I thought I needed more than 100 days. I needed a decent story. Um, as I was drawing, I would come up with some really great ideas, concepts, and stuff like that. And I'm like, you know what? This truly needs more attention. Um, and one of my ideas was to bring these guys back, the kids that uh, were in the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, but not in their current form, uh, their teenage form. It would have been them um, years into the future, still stuck in this place. I mean, they spent episode after episode after episode trying to get home, and uh, basically they never made it. Or it kind of leaves it up to interpretation whether or not they made it. Um, and uh, in my little world, I have them not making it. They're still in the same Dungeons and Dragons realm, and still trying to and pretty much given up trying to get home. Uh, I had I had read this one possible script of the kids, the final episode, and it was pretty dark, and it kind of uh, I don't know if it can be found, but if it, I found it many, 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 many moons ago, um, and it seemed true to the concept of the kids, and their attitudes and stuff. They definitely have evolved a lot. They've been through a lot. A lot of them were discouraged, um, and the ending, it was so ambiguous in that final script that never made the light of day, um, that it kind of left it up to interpretation whether or not they left or not, and I didn't like that. It's like it's up to you, the viewer or the reader, whether or not they made it home. I mean, they went through some crap too. And it even opened up the same way. How they would be knee deep in something, run around looking for Dungeon Master, looking for their way home, following some sort of quest, separated, brought back, things like that. It was kind of an adventure. Um, but I thought, what if they didn't make it home? And what if they just made a life in the place? And um, my new characters who kind of inherit their old weapons um, because they're evil or because they have like this bad element about them, evolve the weapons to a point where they're almost unrecognizable. And I gender bended their personas. Like instead of the barbarian having, just a simple club, the club was inherited by another girl who was just as angry and just like whenever she would hit somebody, she'd steal their soul, type of thing. I mean, these things, none of the weapons were designed to kill, or if they were to kill, they weren't used for that purpose. They were either used to defend, to scare, but they never hurt anybody, not really. They may have roughed somebody up, but it never killed anybody. Like you had a cloak, and the staff. It's a blunt objects. The most dangerous one, I think, was the what's it called? The arrow. Um, that would shoot like light beams or something like that. It's still an arrow, and you would think it would pierce, but it never seemed to hurt anybody. And it had a lot of different powers. It was just really interesting how, in the hands of people who knew how to use it, um, they were able to do more with it. Okay, so I'm going to make her look kind of cute here. And but Diana's power, she was the acrobat, so she didn't get as much um, power from her weapon as she did from being like a gymnast. Um, it could her staff could get bigger or smaller. It could support her weight. It didn't break. It was a pretty boring weapon the way she used it, and I think she could have done a lot more. Like it would have been nice if she did like some martial artist type stuff, like it gave her the ability to do that sort of thing. But she pretty much already came in with her talent. Um, at least that's how it appeared to me. Unlike all the others, like the barbarian, he had like his strength was in his weapon, and then the thief, she was, and you would think that they'd use a lot more of the D&D type stuff, like thieves can have this thief cant where they speak in like a thieving language and understand other, thieves, things like that. But they didn't tap into that sort of thing. But she could go invisible. She didn't have that power before, obviously. Um, the archer, I don't think he ever picked up, and he didn't. I don't think he was an archer in his civilian life. And but he was able to use it just like right off the bat. Fear not, Ranger. That sort of thing. So he was able to use his right off the bat. Very intuitive weapon, I guess. Diana would use hers more like a pole vaulter. Her And I could understand that, but she could have pole vaulted off of anything. They had one episode where, at the beginning, they were all using each other's ability, as they were working as a team, and I thought that was pretty cool. How they all just seemed to find a way to make things work together. Uh, like, what was it? I think Hank fired his arrow. It hit it. I guess it hit into a certain area. Diana launched her. Uh, I don't know. She used Bobby to, to either capture, to hold on to the. I don't know what the damn thing is called. Um, his weapon and land. I don't know. It was just they were using all their powers together, but they didn't really. She didn't use her staff. I mean, her staff would be like that stick that goes into a wall or a pry bar. Um, it wasn't. It would light up, but it didn't necessarily give her power. Everybody else derived their powers from their weapon, such as their weapons were. So I kind of thought that was kind of cool. That at least that's how I saw it. And she seemed to be as intelligent as Hank, and just as capable as of leading as he was. But in a lot of the 80s cartoons, they didn't have female leaders. They had either a team or, they always had someone else guiding them. There was never like a woman that was able to just say, okay, this is how we're going to do the plan. Like even in Scooby-Doo cartoons, Fred was like the obvious leader, even though he was rarely around, and the ones that got the most of the ghosts was Shaggy and Scooby, things like that. Um, Even though Thelma was very smart, and she had that weakness that she had to have her glasses. I can't see anything without my glasses, and seem to constantly be losing them at the just at the right time. But she could have been a better leader. She was so smart. You would think the smart person would be the leader. Eric, in Dungeons and Dragons, uh, was considered the coward because he was always running away, but he also had to stand and use his shield to protect. Most of the time it was by accident, I guess, that his shield was being used at the right time. Everybody kept saying he was a coward. He wanted to get home the most. He had the most common sense, I want to say. It's like, okay, you see this creature, leave it alone. Don't ask questions, just go. Type of thing. He was always the one speaking some sort of truth. And because everybody else was all big and bold and brave and curious, or lighten up. He was like, oh, I'd lighten up, but I'd like to be alive when I lighten up too. you know so he was always the one running away, but he was also the one that had the most common sense. He was the most real to me. But definitely, Diana was very brave. I don't know if they gave her name for like Diana, goddess of the hunt type of thing. Um, if that was part of it. Just want to kind of get this face just right. And now I may not be drawing the characters exactly like they were in the show. Pretty much because I just kind of want to get the spirit of them, and then just kind of draw them in my own little way. what's the fun of just copying? So basically, I'm taking like their looks and their costume and just kind of adding my own spin to it. But everybody wanted to go home. I know that for that much. They fought so hard, and the one that lost the hope fastest was Eric, the one that really wanted to go home. But every time they try, uh, they'd always end up not quite making it, or they'd see it and not go because they had this sense of obligation. Anybody else, if they saw their home, they just like rush it. I'm there. I am so there. But they had their goal in sight so many times and just did not take and they had their reasons. There would always be something. Like, the barbarian didn't want to leave his unicorn behind. And he couldn't take her with him. But it's like, forget that this unicorn belongs here. This is her world, not yours. That sort of thing. So even if they had a way home, he would be one of the things holding him back. You know, he never let her really go. I can't remember if she had one of these little thingies, her jewelry on both sides, or if it was just on one side. Give me one quick second, I gotta take a peek. Let's see if I can find a picture. It looks like it might be on both sides. Yeah, it looks like it's on both sides. Yeah, so regardless of, whether or not they made it home, they never really get to enjoy it. There were people who were brought in from their world. They saw them home, no problem. Like there was this little girl who could, I guess, was a dreamer or something like that, and somehow dreamed her way into the place. These guys ended up on a Dungeons and Dragons ride at an amusement park and just never seemed to make their way back home. I don't know. But it was still a lot of fun to watch. The bad guys were bad. Um, and it's kind of funny. You would think whoever the bad guy uses, you think that, their minions would be, just as powerful. But no, like in a lot of these cartoons, their minions were like idiots. They were buffoons. And is a hero, I'm sorry, a villain only as good as his minions? And they're always, I don't know, I always wondered that about like Mumra. He teamed up with minions who were like obviously dumb. And I guess that's how he was able to subject them to his will. Things like that, but I don't know. Okay, so basically I have her holding her staff. I guess getting ready to fight or guarding against something. Let's see. Her waistband thing was not this low. Let me check this thing here. Make sure that it's still in the camera. Okay. Sometimes I have a tendency of falling outside of the camera. Let's see. Sometimes, like almost all the time. Okay, let's see if this one is good. And a cool thing is that these guys were all friends before they got here. Um, so they kind of knew each other's personality, kind of, sort of. And it would be nice to hear more about, them reminiscing about times back home, or what would they do when they got home, and but their next adventure was always around the corner, which was kind of cool. It was almost like nonstop action. It was very rare to get like bored watching, and really, 80s these 80s cartoons, they didn't have time to be boring. There was a ton of commercials, mostly cereal and toys, and definitely had to get your show and your message out like quick. Now, one of the things I liked about Diana is, like, yeah, she wasn't an idiot. She didn't always have to be saved or rescued. Um, and I see that a lot with black characters. They're not the ones that are always having to be rescued. Um, they're usually the rescuer, or the person that gets sacrificed or something like that, and or not used at all, not really. And it was nice to see that she was definitely part of the team, but if her weapon was really underwhelming. I wish there was more that they had with it, more about the weapons, more to them. And if anything, these would not be more. I don't know. They didn't seem like weapons to me. Um, Eventually, I guess Diana would use hers to fight a little bit, but also to get away quickly. She did do some somersaults every now and then. Um, but I would have loved to see her use her weapon more like a martial artist. That sort of thing. I lost my fingers already. Let's see. Yeah, like I was tempted to give her a pose where she looked like a Shaolin monk, but she never really did that in the show. And it would have been cool if she did. So, like, if I had a character who used a bow, they definitely would gain powers of like the Shaolin monk or something like that. Fighting with this thing, not just evasion. Um, I'm wondering if this is like one of those cartoons that had me kind of yelling at the screen, like, go, go, go. And then it's like, well, I guess you can't go. But my ass would have left. That sort of thing. But then again, it's like the world didn't suck all the time. Sometimes it was fun. And kind of sad in a way. Um, there were times when they celebrated Bobby's birthday uh, in the place, and I don't know. It was just, it had its moments where it was kind of bittersweet. And like part of me didn't want them to leave, but part of me was like kind of rooting for them to like finally find their home. I mean, how sad is that you get all these things dangled in front of you? And it made me wonder who was the true evil. Was it Dungeon Master that brought them, that made it evil, and that these kids just would not be able to find their way home, or that he kept sending them on these wild goose chases? And even Eric would bring that up, and he got to a point where, look, I'm done. I am so freaking done. You either show us the way home or go kick rocks, type of thing. And Dungeon Master would always give them this cryptic reason or whatnot on why he wanted them to go to a certain area. And he didn't promise anything, but he says, well, this might be a possible way home. He gave them these possibilities, and they had no choice but really to try. This is a little too high up. Let's see. We'll just have that be part of the glow. So we'll have the glow be like around here. It's kind of hard to say who had the best weapon. I think Hank had the best one. He could do harm and he could also do good. And some of the others were just pretty much self-preservation, like the thief's cowl. She could run away if she wanted to, or she could help by stealing things. Barbarian, he'd have to be able to hold his club, and hit it against the ground. And yeah, it did make him a little stronger. Just bring this. I'm gonna have this light emanating from right here. Okay. Make it work. Make it work. Okay, she's got some sort of design on her chest plate here. And it would have been nice to see them actually doing like Dungeons and Dragons type things. You've got your quests, but also, you can upgrade your armor, things like that sort of thing, and they never did that. But then again, I guess that's because of the, you can only role play so much. And their role play was more survival than anything. But it would have been nice to have them like level up or upgrade in some sort of way. Like, so by the time they got to the last episode, they're like OP. Like, super overpowering. Okay, let's see. Part of me wants to outline it a little bit darker around the outside. And I'm doing this kind of technique where anything that's like at the bottom of something, um, you give it a thicker outline, and then it just makes it kind of stand out a little bit more. Anything underneath, like right here, is a thicker outline than on top here, because you're kind of assuming that the light is hitting it pretty heavily on top, and if it's sticking out, it would get like a thicker line. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Ugh. Mess up that paw, Kim. Mess up that paw. Okay, and I'll make it thicker down here. So I think that the kids will end up like losing, like if I was, rewriting a fan story with whole new characters and things like that. Dungeon Master is no longer with them, so they can't fall back on his wisdom or his cryptic, clues and things like that. According to the script that I read, well, I don't want to ruin it if you happen to find it. And if I find it, I'll put it in the comments. Or, yeah, I'll put it in the comments so you can see it. I gotta let this dry a little bit. Yeah, regardless, he's no longer with them, and they're all living their lives, doing totally different things. Some for good, some for bad. Um, and what would be funny is that if the only person that made it home was Eric, because he had common sense, that would be the only thing that saved his butt to get him home. That would be crazy. It's like, oh, I gotta save this world. I gotta take care of these people. Bump these people. They never did nothing for us. And then go through that final portal. Um, or like maybe he selflessly had to leave and had to leave everybody behind. That would be cool too. And maybe he was like a poor judge of character, even though he's been a pretty good judge of character throughout a good portion of the show. Anyway, um, let's see. So I gotta let that dry. Let me see if I can find that script. Okay, I think I found something. Yeah, it was Requiem. They even, someone even tried to animate it. Um, let's see. Yeah, it's a PDF. It's called Requiem. And I did not like the final ending. Because it was ambiguous. Um, whether they escaped or not. Okay, so I put that link in the description. Let me go ahead and put like a little colon. And I mean, it was okay. It was well written in its way, um, and but it was like I wanted more. I wanted more. Um, I don't know. Maybe I'm a weirdo. Weirdo. And, it's almost as if I really wanted them to have a decent ending. I don't know. I'm going to give it a few more seconds here to dry, because it is notorious for smearing with this thing here. If I can find my heat gun, I'll hit it and dry it faster, but you know how things are not being in their proper place. Is this it? Yep. Let's see if it's plugged in. Yes, it is. Okay, give me one quick second. I'm going to blow dry all this with my hot air gun and just see if I can get this to dry just in the places where I put. All right. Okay. So now I'm just going to erase some of these stray lines. Okay. Alrighty. Now this is Bristol paper, and I love Bristol paper. Usually I would coat this with baby oil and then color it. Let's see. But I wanted to try something. See if this stuff is still transparent. Yes, it is. This is a, this is called cardstock. And I just wanted to see how well my cardstock would work in this instance. So I'm going to go over it a little bit. Yeah, if you can't tell, I'm kind of tired of ruining my original pictures with my bad colorings or whatnot. So just transfer it this way if I make a mistake, or if I decide to scan it and put it online, you guys can color it if you wanted to. So let me know if you like some coloring pages, if you guys are into coloring with Crayolas, or whatever colored pencil that you like of your choice, or crayon or whatnot of your choice. And if you're interested in that, I can do that as well. So it'd be kind of like a color along with me type of thing. Right now I'm just outlining everything with this dark brown color. And let's see, I'll use my pen here. And also doing this allows me to see a lot of my errors, and I can correct them, like this hand that I kind of jacked up. I can make her lips a little bit more full or less full. Yeah, but on the whole, I did like all the characters. Even Eric. He was annoying when I was a kid, um, but he shouldn't have been annoying. As an adult, I'm like, yeah, I can kind of relate. Self-preservation is not a bad thing. It is not a cowardly trait. I outline this part with brown. Let's see, I'm almost there. Now I'm kind of outlining with brown because a lot of a lot of these items here that she's wearing are like gold or orange, and brown's not unnatural, I guess. For I've already smeared something. You can see it right here. Um, it's not that far-fetched of a forward outline. I was thinking about doing like a what is that pose? Like doing some sort of acrobatic pose for her, some Cirque du Soleil stuff. She did do a lot of flips, a lot of but but not really. I mean, she did just enough so that she can get to that high ledge, or she was flipped up with the Barbarians club, or used it to to land, things like that. I'm really doing her grip here a little primitive. Crap. I don't draw a lot of people gripping things. Yes. Always on the live stream, I gotta screw stuff up. Okay, it's okay. We'll take that as an L. Okay. Da, da, da. And so all my shadows, I'm going to go ahead and fill those in with this dark color here. Because I'm imagining that the staff is lit. Let's see, this is closer to here, so there wouldn't be a shadow there. But I'll just throw that there for contour. So maybe there's a little bit of light coming from here as well. This is kind of closer to her body, so this one can have a bit of a shadow. And I can throw a bit of this into shadow, and I'm just keeping it kind of rough. This is probably lit up, so all this part right here will probably get a little bit of that light. So this will be like more of a contour. Okay. Okay, and I'm using Crayola colored pencils. Um, let's see. Okay, so I'm going to throw a little bit of a contour here. So maybe there's some sort of light coming from that direction. And I'll throw a little bit of a contour line here. And all that is just like the darkest part of her skin. That to give it like a shape. And it's going to be lit up there. Let's see. I think, let's see, brown. Okay. Let's see. I do have. Let's see. There it is. Okay. I'm going to use an actual person to give me some contours here. If you ever want to color in like a realistic style, see if you can find a source image of a real person and apply that to your art. And when I color, I usually use like 4 different colors in different areas. Um, it just gives it a little bit more depth instead of just it being flat. Okay. Like, I'm going to go all the way over with her skin. I kind of wanted this light tone here to be her base tone, and I'm going to avoid certain spots where I think the light's going to hit it pretty hard. The light should be hitting it kind of hard in this area because it's kind of going at an angle. And this part is kind of lit up too. Now I'm using baby oil treated cardstock because it not only it changes the texture of the paper. It makes it a lot easier for colored pencils to glide on them, and you know, I'm going to go back over the darker spots here. And it makes the paper transparent, and it also tones it. So like this is untreated baby oil. No, this is untreated Bristol paper, and this is cardstock. So you can see the difference in the color in between the two. Okay, so we got that. This is going to be lit up. Okay. I have to move a little faster because I've only got like 20 minutes, maybe less, before I got to hit the trail. Now I'm not going to color all the way to the edge here because this is where it's going to be lit up with like the tone of the staff. I think when it's not lit it's just brown, and when it is lit it's kind of yellow or gold, a gold color. So it's like a secondary light type of thing. You got the light that is around her, and that allows you to see the colors in her skin and things like that. And then you've got this other light that's coming from the staff. I'm also going to be using a blending stump to blend my tones together. Okay, I'm going to use sand in the lighter tone areas, and then I'm going to leave like a little bit of crest where the if there's like a lot of highlight. Sometimes I use peach for the highlighted places. And just kind of develop or build up my tones. So the three colors so far that I've used are light brown, dark brown, and sand. And it just gives her kind of a unique look. I'm using the sand going into the light brown. Okay, and wherever it's going to be highlighted, I'll have a little bit of that light, the sand here. Any place where I think that this light is going to kind of hit it a bit, I'm going to have that go in there, and then I'm going to have light brown next to the dark brown. Now with this cardstock being treated with baby oil, I might not even need my blending stump. And all the blending stump does is just blend a lot of the colors together, so it's seamless, and you don't see the pencil scratches as much. In the cartoon, they would have her lips be pink. Let's see. Instead of being like completely pink, I'm going to use like a copper color. So it's kind of like a lighter tone, and I'll also use it in her skin. And it gives a little bit more of a transition between the light brown and the sand. And I'm going into a little bit of the sand. Yeah, so I overlap my colors a lot, just so I can get a specialized color tone type of thing going on. If you want to add a little bit more dimension to your picture, allow yourself to have highlights and shadows. Between the two, it'll give more roundness to your faces, to your characters, um, to whatever you're creating. It just gives it a little bit more instead of just coloring it flat. Oh, hi Lavender. I'm using Crayola colored pencils. Um, they're pretty cheap. They work really well. Another one that's really good is, they're Prismacolors, but not everybody can afford Prismacolors, especially if you're a little kid and you're just starting out, and you get these colors, um, like every year when you start school. I mean, they're the most easiest thing to come across. You can go to the grocery store and pick them up. Um, Prismacolors could be coming that way too. Um, let's see. I do want to throw a little bit of pink into her lips. This one right here is Cantaloupe. I'm using the 100 pack of colored pencils. And even if I wanted to lighten up her skin just a little bit more, maybe give it like a rosier glow, I also use the same tones in different places. So like here, I would just go into some of the brown and just keep going, keep going, keep going until I get that a slightly rosier glow. So it warms her up a bit. It's like a warmer brown. Sometimes I will use mahogany. That's another brown, reddish brown, like this one right here. And that will also provide like a little bit more of a warmer glow. And I'd probably just do like one or two layers, depending on how reddish her skin tone would be. So far, we used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 colors on her skin alone. And that just gives it a little bit more depth. And if I needed to lighten or if I needed to darken her skin tone and the dark brown doesn't seem to be cutting it, I would also use like a blue or purple, um, or even a, let's see, mulberry or raspberry. That'll also give you a rosy tone, a little deeper, darker. So I'm using that in her cheekbone here a little bit. And I guess I'll throw a little bit in our lips, just a little. Just to give it a little bit of color. Okay. Let's see. I got her leg here too. I forgot to put that outline on. Let's see. Okay. So I really don't need the other beneath it, but you can see the evolution thus far between the two. The line art and my colored version. Da, 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 da. Okay. For her hair, I have two choices. I can either go dark and I think that's what I'll do. Right now, I'm going to just cover the darker areas with this dark brown, but I'm going to kind of give it a little bit more depth. I'm going to give her curls, and because this was like an animated cartoon, they didn't really have the time to put a ton of detail into hair and things like that, but since this is like our still drawing, we can do that. And that again gives it a little bit more depth. Okay, so right here there will be like a little bit of highlight, so let me see if I can do this thing here, and this will handle my highlights here. I'm gonna lighten this bad boy up, so everywhere I was reserving some of the spots, I'm going to go ahead and add those. And I apologize, I won't be able to finish this. I've got about maybe 10 minutes to get this done before I have to hit the trail. And we'll have that lit up right here. Right here, this is where the light is hitting it the hardest. It's hitting her in the fur. And I'm pretty much just reserving these areas so that if I do go over with the other colors, I won't lose that. So part of her face will be lit up a little bit. And it just kind of gives a little bit more dimension to it. And I can use like the opposite color of the yellow on the color wheel, and that is either blue or purple. I'm going to use like blue or purple to make this yellow stand out more. Let me go ahead and, well, at least that's what I want to do. And to make her hair a little bit darker, like if I was going to use this brown again in her hair and this light brown, you wouldn't have too much difference between her hair and what is it called? Her hair and her skin. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add one more brown, and then I'm going to add like a blue color. Let's see, either blue or purple. Here we go. I've got the first one that pops up is blue. Now, what it does is this is going to make my colors just a little bit darker. And I'm just going to give her some, just a few curls here and there. Now, it'll probably end up being a little bit darker here in the center. Because this thing is lighting up all this area here and down below. And you just follow the contours of where the light would hit it. Okay, let's see, and above here, because I'm imagining this fur kind of has like a curve to it. And then I'm going to put like some shadow here. And then a little bit more of the deeper shadow here. I'm going to go with this light brown here. And I'm just going to go ahead and color the entire fur in because I'm running out of time. I'm just going to do a quick coat of this. And that just gives it the overall tone. Same thing up here. Now another thing that would be kind of interesting is if they were doing mismatched armor type of thing. You know, because like when you're playing a video game, and I'm also going to do like little tick marks to kind of give it more of a furry look. That maybe the fur would be two different colors, like it's like from two different animals type of thing. just makes it look a little bit furrier. Just doing a few squiggles, open circles, some a little darker, some a little lighter, and it just gives it depth. Okay, I got 6 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing with her hair up here. I'm gonna color it with a dark tone. And I think instead of the straight lines, I'm gonna give it like circular lines. That shows that her hair is like a little kinkier. It has a little bit more texture to it. It's not just straight. See, one of the things that I had in my idea when, you know, for fan art is that, yeah, there will be people of color in there, black people especially, and I would have to, you know, they'd have to deal with what it's like to live without technology. I mean, black people like to change their hair texture by pressing, and what that does is just helps you to give yourself a variety of styles by doing that. Curling it, straightening it, but without all that stuff, you're gonna have to improvise. You know, because we've got chemicals, hair grease to straighten it. It's like you're cooking your hair straight. You know, flat irons, hot air, not hot air. Well, yeah, we've got a lot of different ways to change the texture of our hair in order to achieve different styles. And with it being like in a medieval type of fantasy realm, if you're not using magic to straighten your hair, or whatever chemicals that you can find in nature or unnatural, you're kind of doomed to whatever, you know. So I was trying to figure out, you know, how black girls would straighten their hair, you know, especially if you're not born with naturally straight hair. So some of the ideas were like magic or different chemicals, and because you're making it yourself, you know, it doesn't come from a factory or a store. You may have to get kind of creative with the stuff that you use. So it could be the grease from the fat of an animal, um, you know, things like that, or like the latest thing would be like blood from a certain animal. Or if you needed to give yourself, you know, thicken up your hair or something like that, maybe, you know, you'd have to improvise. You'd have to improvise and use whatever you've got available. Or you can do what Diana's done, which is pretty much just stick with whatever her hair is, you know, and just work with it. It's wild, it's crazy, it's still beautiful. Okay, and I would use blue to darken it up just a little bit, just to make it different from her skin tone, just to make it different from her fur, because I am still pretty much using the same colors. And so I'll go over it with the blue in certain spots, and I'm also doing squiggles, and that adds a little bit more texture and depth, and then just go back over it with brown. To where you can't see the blue anymore. Blue? What blue? I didn't use any blue on my hair. What are you talking about? Purple is also a nice color to use as well. And if the light's really bright, you can definitely add more anywhere you think the light's going to hit it. Okay, well, I've got 1 minute left. I'd like to thank you guys for coming, listening to me rant a little bit or rave a little bit about one of my favorite cartoons, and how I'd like to change it. Or how if it was in my hands, how I would do my own little fan art thing. And I didn't even get to her legs, but hopefully I'll be able to complete this before I move on to the next one. And I've got a few that I definitely have to come back to. So here's another one, another area. But again, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already and you feel froggy and you think you can get a little bit more out of my channel, please like and subscribe. You know, as you wish. And hopefully I'll be able to capture something that you guys would be interested in. If you've got a favorite cartoon and our spirits mesh in that, let me know, and maybe that will be the next one I do. I wasn't into like the really kiddie cartoons when I was a kid, but you know, that was what was on, and that's what I ended up watching. So this was one of my favorites because it didn't like make me feel like I was like a little kid, and had it was just beautiful, and it was sad. And it made you think sometimes. But anyway, again, thank you guys so much for watching, and here's what the original versus the colored version looks like. And I hope I see you guys again in the next stream. I'm not sure what I'm going to be drawing tomorrow. These were some of my absolute favorite cartoons, and some of the characters that kind of influenced me as a kid, even though they didn't have much of a part. Oh, okay, I'm just babbling on. Okay, please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.